Hello, welcome back, Recapped Mystery here. Today, I'm going to explain a crime, comedy film, We're the Millers. Watch out and take care. David is sitting at home viewing YouTube videos when he receives a text inquiring if he received the items. Of course, he received the products. He packs his belongings and departs. First, a mother, then a broker, and then a chef. His clientele is not dwindling. Ricky and David went to college together, so they catch up, and David gives him some kush. Ricky is astonished he's still selling, but he says he envies his freedom, saying he could go tomorrow and no one would know. When you speak it out loud, it doesn't sound so wonderful. Rose works as a club dancer. She despises her job, and she also happens to be David's neighbor, with whom she does not get along. Kenny appears and suggests purchasing some of the excellent stuff, but David refuses to sell it to children, despite Kenny's age. When Kenny witnesses Casey, a homeless girl, being bullied by some thugs, he comes to her aid only to be beaten up. David steps in. Kenny declares, "I'm cool, I'm a dealer." They made a bad decision by threatening David with a knife in order to get him to hand over his rucksack. He manages to sneak past the guys and flee as they pursue him. David is eventually trapped and takes a cliche copyright leap into the skip, only to seal it with his rucksack and land on the lid. They ransack his flat and stole everything. David receives phone calls from his supplier but does not answer them. A black Jeep approaches, and two men tase him and shove him into. They transport him to Brad's estate. The unsettling element is that he's standing on plastic wrap to avoid smearing anything in case the discussions fail. Brad laughs at him and tells him that the plastic is for the new skylight. That's a massive aquarium, complete with a whale. David owes Brad $43,000. Things are horrible, but Brad offers a win-win solution. He wants a smidgen of kush sent from Mexico, but his normal courier was assassinated. Therefore he needs David to be his mule, someone he can rely on. If he succeeds, his debt will be forgiven, and he will receive a bonus of $100,000. David is hesitant because if he is apprehended, he faces life in a Mexican prison. He doesn't have a choice, despite forgetting one item. Kenny proposes dressing up since he looks exactly like a dealer. David chastises him for his dumb notions. When a Flanders family comes by to ask for directions, the officer is quite friendly to them and provides them information, and David realizes he needs a family and an RV. David comes to Rose to recruit her as his wife, promising her $100,000. Rose rejects because she does not trust him. David easily recruits Kenny and suggests another member, Casey. She agrees to work for $1,000. Kenny is introduced to his new sister. Rose's manager informs her that the club's policy has changed slightly, and he wants her to sleep with the clients. Rose quits on the moment despite her financial difficulties. David is at the barber shop, giving money to Kenny and Casey so they may buy new clothes. On second thought, Kenny already appears to be a nerd, so he takes his money and hands it on to Casey. David takes a seat, and the hairdresser asks what he wants. Something that appears to get up at 5:30 a.m. and commute for an hour and a half to some BS job where his boss expects him to kiss his balls all day so he can afford to keep his ungrateful screaming kids and annoying wife until the day he's encouraged to put a shotgun in his mouth. The man in front of him coughs and adds, "Right here." They arrive at the airport. David hands over his papers to security, and the guard says he's fine. Casey is an angel both in the photograph and in real life. But Kenny, sussy, full body check. Rose appears unexpectedly on the plane. David agrees if she asks for 30 grand instead of 10 grand. They arrive as their RV pulls up and drives away. Casey finds a pyrotechnics stand and begs. David is asked to stop, but he refuses. The chant is then joined by Kenny and Rose. He rants at everyone and declares that they are not a true family. They arrive at the Mexican border and the guard simply lets them pass. David is surprised that it worked. They arrive at a massive gate guarded by numerous armed guards. They are admitted. Everyone who isn't scared carries a gun. Others are alarmed, but David is unconcerned with the situation. When he meets the alleged employer, One Eye threatens him with a revolver until he mentions that Pablo Chacon, Brad's presumed identity, sent him. David informs him that he is with his family, and One Eye invites him in. It's 2 tons of kush, not just a smear. When David phones Brad, He's startled that they're sending him the goods he's not sure, stating it's for Pablo Chacon would have worked. A woman approaches Kenny and offers him some fruit. He politely declines, but changes his mind when One Eye threatens to blow his brains out if he doesn't accept it. The RV is full, and Snoop Dogg would enjoy this fridge. A spider is creeping around on the fruits. They leave the camp, and an officer awaits them on the way out. He knows they have some marijuana on them, so he's merely there to collect his bribe of $1,000 and go on his way. Sadly, they don't have that much, so he'll accept something more personal. Rose sucks David off once he gets the hint. Rose is not going to do it, and the cop assures her that he is more interested in guys. David summons Kenny outdoors, who is oblivious of his objectives. He explains the strategy and the necessity to satisfy the police. Kenny refuses, stating that he does not swing that way. David requests that he do it for the girls, for Casey, and he accepts. The cop walks in and asks what's the holdup, if someone will do it or if I'll get 1,000 pesos. He didn't mean money, it turns out. David hands him a 100 and they continue their journey. The Fitzgerald family pulls up alongside them in an RV at the border. They cause quite a commotion. Millers prefer to stay low, but Fitzgeralds push their hand, and they welcome them unwillingly. Melissa, their daughter, has a crush on Kenny. When it's their turn to be checked, a man is arrested for possessing marijuana. I'm having second thoughts. David slams on the brakes, and a pot falls from the cupboard, which Rose wraps in a blanket to make it look like a baby. The Fitzgeralds are eager to learn more about the baby. The security guy instructs them to back up. They don their caps. The guard meets David and inquires whether they are bringing anything from Mexico that he should be aware of. David is terrified and mute. The dog begins to bark, and they are pulled over for an inspection. 5 illegal immigrants who were hiding under the RV flee just as the inspector is ready to search it. The inspector apologizes for the inconvenience and dismisses them. They are perplexed by what has just occurred as well as the life sentence hanging over them. They're relieved that everything went smoothly, so turn up the music and have a good time. Meanwhile, the real Pablo Chacon arrives and discovers that his pot has been stolen, so they set out to recover it. Returning to the Millers, they are driving a 15-ton lorry up a slope when their engine fails. There is also no signal. Casey and Rose leave to seek assistance. Fitzgerald's pulls up and offers them a ride. They know a mechanic who can assist them. Edie, the woman in the RV, questions David about how Rose and he met. David recounts Rose the genuine tale of how they met in her flat, and it's truly astounding how precise he remembers it. Don requests that David fetch the map from the glove box, which is when he finds a badge and a gun. Don is an off-duty DEA agent. This makes them concerned, so they have a family meeting. Their objective is to get rid of Fitzgerald's family as quickly as possible, but the repair garage is closed, so they'll have to camp out for the night. When Edie attempts to take the baby away from Rose in order for her to have some free time, she fights back and ends up flinging the pot blanket into the road, where it is run over twice. Casey rescues the day by telling Edie that the baby was a school project, not a real baby, and they apologize to the Gerald family. In the evening, they build a bonfire and sing some songs, giving an A for effort to the Millers. They also play a drawing game in which the solution to Melissa's drawing is plain and simple and no one can get it right. Kenny comes up next, and he has to sketch a skateboard, which is slightly deceiving. Kenny and Melissa have a pleasant conversation after the games. Melissa leans in for a kiss, but Paul simply holds her. David walks over to console him and ends up giving him sound advice. Casey feels terrible for Kenny and decides to teach him how to kiss. Casey does not love it. When David and Rose return, they continue to practice. Rose joins in and requests that he show her what he's learned. Not terrible. She teaches him another method, and David is merely a bystander at this point. Melissa appears unexpectedly and is taken aback by what is going on. Don transports the Millers to the garage where their RV should be repaired. The Fitzgeralds leave. David goes in to collect his RV. Brad calls and asks where he is. He should have returned by now. When he sees the mechanics strapped to a chair and says he'll be back soon, Pablo has located them. David hands him the phone. Brad becomes afraid and hangs up, and One Eye has arrived. They track them down using a transmitter hidden in a pot. The Millers dispute amongst themselves, demonstrating that they are not a true family, and when Pablo discovers that Rose is a dancer, He invites her to perform. Rose begins to undress, climbs the stairs, grabs her trusty pole, and soaks herself. David gives it a 5 out of 5 stars. Rose delivered an outstanding performance. Kenny can scarcely keep his hands to himself. Rose massages Pablo's chest and opens the hot steam valve, while David grabs a wrench and hits one eye. When he fails, he attempts to settle things quietly, but it doesn't work. Kenny manages to knock one eye out. They all jump into the RV, and Kenny continues driving, smashing Pablo's car while being shot at. When David tries to take the wheel, the fruits fall to the ground along with the spider. The spider climbs Kenny's leg, and the RV goes off the main road, but no one is hurt, except for Kenny. The spider bit him, and he hurries outside, followed by the others, as it appears to be quite painful. Rose requests that he show her his balls. Because this is a family-friendly video, I'll leave the terrible scene to your imagination. David continues to argue with Rose that he doesn't have time to drive Kenny to the hospital until he passes out. David phones Brad after he arrives at the hospital. Brad is astonished to discover that David is still alive. David threatens to betray Brad by giving Pablo a smidgen of the pot. Brad gives him $500,000 as pay for his difficulties, but only if he delivers the stuff by tonight. The doctor tells them that Kenny could be released in a few hours, but David isn't happy since he needs Kenny and his enormous nut out of here right now. Rose and Casey opt to stay even after he explains the scenario to them. Scotty P. approaches the RV, a well-mannered young man, if you know what I mean. He's come to get Casey. Rose chooses to talk with him a little before they depart, and they ask about his tattoos, particularly the one on his collarbone that says no regrets. Casey and Scotty leave because they are uncomfortable with the situation. Rose and David bond after she explains that Rose is her stage name and her actual name is Sarah, and they almost share a kiss. Casey returns from her ride. They chastise her for being gone for so long, just like real parents would. Casey has the warm impression that someone is concerned about her. They eventually get Kenny back. He rushes him to the RV but drops him, stating that he's in a hurry because the job deadline is in 4 hours and that $500,000 is on the line. Rose, let me explain. You make $500,000 and only give me $30? 30 grand? I'm just going to get 1,000. Are you folks getting paid? Casey storms away, enraged. Rose and Kenny will not leave without her. David drives away, angrily telling them they deserve each other. Pablo discovers their location, and Casey joins up with Scotty. David contacts Brad to inform him that he will be back in 3 hours. He clearly misses them a little time afterwards. Casey tells Scotty about her difficulties with the entire vacation, but he just wants to get it started. Rose steps in and tells him to keep his hands to himself. The situation worsens, and Rose punches the child. David has returned, but they are not thrilled to see him. They wait for an apology, but he continues to spout rubbish because his pride gets in the way. He even considers splitting 500 grand, with each receiving 125, but they want David to ask forgiveness, which he does. They come upon Fritz Grobes on their way to the RV. They're arguing about what Melissa witnessed them do last night. Kenny tries to redeem himself by telling her that they only snuck some marijuana and aren't a true family. One Eye approaches them as they try to cover it up with lies. He raises his rifle at David, but Don opens the RV door and beats him up with a large mug. Melissa is ready to contact the cops when Pablo kidnaps her. David hands him the RV's keys. They claim he doesn't have to murder them now that he has his pot back. He claims they forced him to cross the border, burned his face, wrecked his car, and twice beat up his buddy. He is not required to shoot them, but he wishes to. David begs him not to shoot anyone other than himself. Pablo protests, but explosions distract him and David manages to throw the gun out of his grasp. Rose grazes Pablo, and Kenny delivers a knockout punch. He kisses Melissa using the method Rose showed him. David and Rose kiss as well. Don arrests Pablo and has a sexual encounter with Edie. He releases the Millers. The following day, David arrives at Brad's house to give the products, but the deadline was last night, so no deal. He recognizes that Brad will never pay him, no matter what. The D storms the scene. He has notified them with Don's assistance. He does not receive the money, but in exchange, He and his phony family are placed in witness protection for 3 to 6 months. David later waters his plants in the suburbs and introduces his family to the neighbors. We Are the Millers. There is a happy ending, but some things never change. The conclusion. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.